Welcome to Vienna, welcome to the Pyramid Hotel, welcome to this special Encod TV talk show on the 57th session of the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs. We have here 4 guests in our makeshift studio tonight. Well, I'll introduce them to you shortly. Right here on the right is, to my right, is Joep Oomen, one of the founders and the coordinator of Encod. Here's Doug Fine, American author and hamster, I could say. It is a very good job today at the UN for Encod, I must say. Then we move here. Here's Louis Beer from Chanvre et Liberté in France. And then here is Farid, also from France. Long-time cannabis activist and also veteran hamster, I would say. So we will discuss with these 4 people. Well, we've had the 2 days now of the high-level segment of the CND. What our experiences have been. All of us, except for one, has been inside the UN for this high-level segment. So we might start with this because something very unfortunate happened. Our coordinator, Joep Oomen, he didn't get into the UN. So please explain us what happened, and we should start yesterday, I think yesterday morning, with the first, when we first arrived to do the picket line action.
We were told that we were not allowed to bring in flyers or posters, that they were seen as propaganda. I thought it was a bit strange because other NGOs are allowed to bring in their stuff. Their tables are filled with books and flyers. But okay, we didn't want to make any problem, so we took all the flyers, all the posters, and I brought them back to the car in the garage under the building. When I came back about 1 hour later, I was thinking, well, why would have be doing this with us? But I thought I will just go in like anybody else. And then when I came in the second time, they asked me, they forced me, they said I was obliged to be body searched. And they, as I come from Belgium, and I know also from the Dutch situation, if you are asked to be body searched, a policeman always has to have a legitimate reason. You are at that moment sort of criminalized, you are suspected. Yeah. So you have to know why you are being criminalized. So I asked this person, can you tell me why? He said, because you have participated in a demonstration, which was a legal demonstration. We didn't do anything illegal there. We didn't harass anybody. So I thought...
There was actually police permission given up front.
Of course. So I said, I don't accept that argument. And then the guy said, I'm going to ask my supervisor. And this is a key phrase in the whole story because it comes back all the time.
You've seen a lot of supervisors over the last 2 days.
Quite a lot. The supervisor came, looked at me, didn't say anything. He just shouted immediately, you're going out now. So he took my bag, my coat, and threw it outside in the street. Then the agent stood next to me and recommended me to follow him because he said, you can better do that. And I did because I didn't want to lose my bag. But then I came 3 meters in front of the door, the exit door, and I thought, if I go out now, I won't come back again. And I have the right to be here because I'm accredited, I'm invited by the United Nations, and I'm not just myself, I'm representing an organization.
Because just to make this clear, you were going to speak on Friday at the roundtable session. This was all planned, it was in the program.
We had asked
you were
for
going
it.
to speak. Yeah.
We had prepared it for weeks.
As an NGO, as a member of civil society.
Yes. Yeah. So I thought 3 meters in front of the door, I stop. And I want to know why I'm being thrown out. And then some of these big guys, there were about 5 of them already, they started to push me. And they said I had to go out. And well, something happened, I fell on the ground, and then I said, well, if you want to get me out, then throw me out. Yeah. And that was against the procedures, because then another 5 security officers came in who had seen this on the video and said the others to back off, to take distance. And they started to talk to me, like a normal policeman would do. I had not used any aggressive language, I had not made any aggressive act. He talked to me and he said, you have to understand that some NGO delegates can be body searched. Only staff members and governmental delegates have the right not to be body searched in the UN. So I thought, if you want to get your drugs inside the UN, contact the staff members or the governmental delegates, not the non-governmental delegates, because they are body searched. But anyway,
Good to know. Good to know.
Good to know. So I said, well, I think it's a bit crappy argument, but I accept this. Under this condition, I want to come in, and I want to be body searched. I don't mind to be body searched. But then in the meantime, Supervisor 3 and Supervisor 4 had arrived, and they were talking with Supervisor 1, who had become quite red in the face because he had to throw me out, and he sort of didn't want to anymore let me in. Then Supervisor 3 finally, after talking with him for 10 minutes, came to me and said, look, you are entitled to come in, you have the right to come in, but you have created a fuss here, so please leave for today.
Like, as if you created the fuss.
Yeah, I understand. I will go out, enjoy the sun in Vienna, come back tomorrow. I have to make a speech, so no problem. Send over it, as we say in Dutch.
But this is a key moment, I think, because they said to you, you can come in tomorrow to make your speech.
That's what they said, literally. So today, I come after the demonstration with my bag, and then Supervisor 2 or 3, I can't remember who, had come down.
Might be 4.
Yeah, came down and told me, I'm afraid to have to tell you that your accreditation has been revoked. I asked why, and he said, that's because you have created an incident yesterday.
Yesterday we were threatened by the security of the UN. The guy was very insulting with us. He threatened me directly, and he said, oh, I'm the owner of the stairs on which we were forbidden to
there
walk.
Was a lot of
and
aggression coming from the security.
He accused us to block the people, and he was very aggressive. He put the pressure. It was very. I don't know how, if we had the image from the camera, the different video surveillance, then we could say, and we could have the real things. And for sure, we were peaceful. We were there with the authorization. Even the policemen, official policemen, were trying to calm the security. So
there was a very big difference between the Austrian police and mostly American security guards, I had the impression. But okay, it's like you said, for over 4 hours you tried to still get in, or at least get some reason out of the UN. But if these people thought that we're not going to give the speech because Joep Oomen was outside, they made a bit of a mistake, but because of course we had someone who could make it in your place, which is of course Doug. But what would you say was your personal experience to, because of course it's a responsibility to go into the UN, to have all these delegates at the round table and to present them a message that they probably never have heard before at the round table from a guy dressed from head to toe in hemp.
Well, first I should say that I'm still thinking about cultivating good relationship with the member nations, because now that I know the diplomatic pouch, they can't be searched. That's all good to know for the future. Also, in terms of you being held waiting for 4.5 hours, just please remember that the universe, I think, is 20 billion years old. So, big picture, he wasn't really kept waiting that long. No, I'm kidding, of course. It felt strangely natural because Joep and I were really feeling out who was going to be reading the statement that was prepared jointly by Encod members and put together in a very thoughtful, collaborative way. So we all felt a collaborative ownership of the words.
This was a communal effort, yeah.
And it didn't really matter to me who read it. And once it looked like you really wasn't going to be let in and I had to read it, it was sort of like, this one's for you. You know what I mean? And so I really tried to bring
You did mention him twice, I think, in the speech, yeah?
I mean, I think just once, but mentioned that he had his credentials stripped, and that folks should check out the Encod press release about it, and that wasn't something that was okay. All that said, it was in the context of a fairly monumental day at the UN. In other words, with Joep in our minds and thoughts all day, good things were happening inside
Absolutely.
as well.
Absolutely.
And so it was sort of like all in honor of Joep, as far as I was concerned.
We'll talk later a bit more about the speech and about how it was received and the kind of reactions you got. But let's first move to Louis. It was your first time here, but it was also your first time here in Vienna and at the UN.
Yes.
What was your impression of these first 2 days? Because you spent, I think, a lot of time in the plenary session listening to the delegates from all over the world give out their 3-4 minute message. But how did you like it?
I would say it was a great experience, of course, because it's always amazing to see all these people coming from all over the world and to hear them, and also this great building and so on. But what is, I think, the most impressive was the speech of the Venezuela delegate. Was really, I think, really honest.
Yeah.
Because I would say
He spoke the truth.
it's not. It was really. I don't know if there is a truth in this question about drugs, but he was asking question. No other delegates would ask, for example, about how to interpret figures. For example, how really works the black market. How the studies know something, but there is also plenty of things we don't really know about drugs and so on, and we maybe before deciding what really the truth is, maybe we have to study more and so on.
Okay. And Farid, it wasn't your first time. You've been here a few times before. What I noticed talking to you over these 2 days is that you are really quite optimistic, and also you think that Fedotov is really different from Fedotov is of course he's the main guy of UNODC, that he's a lot better at his job than his predecessor, Mr. Costa. So is it true that you are quite optimistic about these 2 days and what happened?
Yeah, for sure. We can say that there is a difference, and even from last year to this year, there is a difference. But I was there for the first time in 2004, so 10 years before. We were quite very few. We were quite shy or hiding in corridor, and now we can see that the civil society representatives are very powerful. They are here, they are numerous, and
I've heard somebody say that there were about 160 NGO representatives inside.
This is what the Vienna NGO committee is now representing inside the UN. But Encod is also a European coalition of NGO and individuals that also represent more than 150 members, and so the civil society is really impressive now. And what makes the difference between Costa and Fedotov is the fact that he's a real diplomat, and he is trying to push or trying to accommodate the implication of the civil society organization. And I would say that since 2009, because today we had in the plenary session the high-level segment of the review of the midterm strategy adopted in 2009, this famous declaration that was in fact the same declaration that was adopted in New York in 1998.
Was that the drug-free world one?
Yeah. To sum up,
drug-free world, we can do it.
Yeah.
I remember the slogan.
But what makes me optimistic is the fact that what I've heard from everywhere in rooms of hearings or in rooms of the plenary session or in corridors is the fact that nobody now, maybe some Swedish, but nobody dare to say that we will succeed to have a drug-free world. So now the question is how we try to dialogue, how we try to open the debate, how we try to put the words on a reform process. And then should we target the reform of the INCB? Should we talk about the current narcotic board, or should we try to implement a global directive, code of conduct, guidance, saying, for example, like it seems to be, we don't have the final declaration today, but finally maybe they will start to say that we should decriminalize drug use. That
So
would be
one of the words that we heard often was harm reduction. Even Fedotov said in his opening statement, harm reduction is not only effective but very cost effective too. Joep, you know that it took years for even those two words, harm reduction, to get into any UN text. Do you share like the optimism that now finally we've sort of reached this tipping point, and that now we're in the right direction? Are you a bit more skeptical, or what would you say?
I wasn't inside, so I can't really judge about the atmosphere inside, but I don't think that this meeting is different because they use other words or they confirm same words. I think that's a bit, sorry for the expression, but I think it's a bit blah blah, because it's just words. And decriminalization of use, I mean, in no convention use is criminalized. It's talking about production and distribution, but it's not talking about consumption. So it's a bit, and it's not the words, it's a lot of lip service around there, and then some NGOs, some lobby also make use of that industry around which kind of words are important and not. It's not about the words, it's about the actions. And I see that there is, of course, movement, and in some areas of the world there is importance, not anymore symbolic, but important advance, progress, real progress. But there is still a lot of stagnation in a lot of countries, and there is also reversal in some countries, also in the West, also in the South and in the East, but also in the West, still consumers are in trouble. And as long as they keep on talking about, I think the real interesting thing is that they want to speak about allowing experiments. If they do that, then they will sort of give green light to countries like Spain or Czech Republic or Belgium, but some countries to go on allowing tolerance and not anymore talk about zero tolerance as an ideal. That is progress.
Yeah, because we actually heard Fedotov saying literally at the press conference, he said like the conventions are no straitjackets, and every country really can decide on his own whether the policy is within the UN conventions, which I thought was quite a remarkable statement. How's your skepticism, optimism
Meter?
Very
high on the optimism, and I'll tell you for two reasons. One sort of conceptual reason and one very specific practical reason. In the United States, where I'm from, the truth being spoken about drug policy came very suddenly and preceded the real change that we're seeing. Basically, the road towards full cannabis legalization, at least, eventually over most or all of the U.S. in coming years, it came very suddenly, about 2 or 3 years later. And although this was my first foray into international drug policy and UN meetings, it was clear that, albeit it was just words were being spoken that struck me as true and that everybody was saying hadn't been spoken before. For example, the chairman saying member states, if enough member states were to decide that they wanted to explore legal regulation of cannabis, let's say, that the conventions would adapt to those changes. That is a powerful statement, as well as all the harm reduction and positive talk that we were hearing from a number of countries, certainly not all countries. So on the conceptual level, to my journalist's ear and mind, hearing the truth spoken in the forum preceded the real deal in the US. I think it's preceding the real deal on the international level as well. The more concrete reason is, it's all very good to say, oh, this country's open to this country's open to that. But the good folks at this terrific organization, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, or LEAP, have put together this booklet that specifically proposes an amendment to the Convention on Narcotics that governs international drug law that addresses all of the issues that need to change in order for member states to have the freedom to set their own policy, which I think is an admirable goal. So here it is right here. It exists, and all they have to do now in advance of the big 2016 meeting, which the rumblings are where the big change will happen, one nation has to come on board and say, we want to revisit and amend the convention.
It's true, because this is in the conventions that you only really need one member state to do it. But I think LEAP is, of course, aiming to have at least one, but trying to get some more, if they can. Yeah.
And then, of course, there'd be votes, and then a whole second stage of the battle begins. But to me, we now have the solution in print, and that's very encouraging.
So going back to you, Louis, inside the plenary sessions most of the day, what was surprising to you hearing all these delegates? Myself, I was quite surprised when I almost by accident heard Japan, the Japanese delegates, saying outrageous things and claiming even that medical cannabis was one big fraud or a joke, and that even medicinal use should be banned and all that. And I didn't know this about Japan. Did you have like similar things that you thought, oh,
Yes.
be it negative or positive?
Yes. Like the same experience you had with Japan, I have the same with the delegate of Morocco who said that cannabis had no medical use or no use at all. It was, oh, okay. Are you sure you come from Morocco?
Farid, for you, also being like a veteran of these kind of conventions and these kind of meetings, of the whole political game, so to speak, could you still be surprised by some, like for instance, we've heard the Queen of Sweden, of course, and we've heard her a few times before at the UN. But she's still sticking to this zero tolerance and the ambition of a total drug-free Sweden. Did this surprise you, or is it just like, well, that's how she is?
I'm not the best to talk about this hearing because I was not there, but I heard about, and I remind that in 2009 she was invited with Evo Morales, and both were the high-level segment representative. And when we compared their two speeches, she was mostly based on saying that to tackle the drug issue, we should think that it's a matter of not a matter of health, but a matter of law enforcement. And now she is quite avoiding to talk about law enforcement, but she is mainly focusing on a health issue. And that's the danger for the movement, is the fact that we are still trying to, unbrigade the debate and to put it in cage in just the health issue. We know that there is a social issue. We were invited as Encod today to talk on the money laundering and judicial cooperation, and so that's lots of issues. And what's surprised me, I have one scoop, but I will keep it for. To go back to this session of the hearing, is the fact that the Russian delegation, which for me is our most enemy, because I think that Russia has taken the U.S. leadership in the global prohibition system. And so after Doug made the Encod statement, the Russian asked to take the floor immediately and say, oh, I give, they speak the truth. Encod speaks the truth. Thank you, Mr. Doug Fine, to have spread the good words. And the Russian, the high-level Russian. And that was amazing to see. Yeah. But then after at the back, he said that there was difference because Doug was presenting positive way for legalization, and he was not in favor of this because
But he
if we
thought
go
the
there-
analysis was good.
He said it was too soon to legalize. Was his basic
too soon to legalize.
Yeah.
And so that's amazing
Not
to
enough
see the
money being
Russian
made.
on this. But what was amazing was the presentation during this hearing of the Russian, because they didn't talk about what they have implemented within their borders. They talk about the situation in Afghanistan and in the whole world, in Panama and everywhere, and it was very heavy. All other, like in plenary session, they are using the same words, making the same kind of balance. And here it was detailed with photography
Yeah, you had
and
PowerPoint
pictures. Yeah,
presentation.
and it was quite.
Getting back to the reactions that you got out of your speech at the round table, what happened? Like right after you finished. Was there any reaction, or was it just dead silence, or
Oh yeah.
did people like shun you, or?
No, actually, quite the contrary. It was a very interesting reaction, and another reason I think, for encouragement, that a number of delegates approached me afterwards, asking for a transcript of the speech and giving me their emails, and from countries that I don't know, you might not expect to be major players on drug policy or major progressive leaders. Just to throw one out there, Zimbabwe, and. To me, the fact that delegates were listening and potentially learned something from one 3-minute talk means that there are, the English expression is on the fence. There are people that haven't made up their mind yet about this, and if you speak the truth, they're going to be on our side about this. In other words, ending the drug war. And so that was another encouraging thing.
Okay. But to wrap it all up, we've had 2 full days. I think we're all a bit tired. We had the coffee sniffers out, we had the nice music out at the UN entrance. We had a lot of fun, I must say. We had this dreadful, really I think quite outrageous thing happening to you, Joep. You traveling 2,000 kilometers, having all the agreements, doing everything they want, being totally peaceful out there, and then being banned for 2 days. But for you, if you look at the whole thing, not only this aspect, but what Encod has been doing here over these past few days, how do you look back on it?
It's very nice to see a small group of people. We are only 15 or 12, but we come from 11 countries.
Yeah.
So, and we're all very happy and full of energy. What they can do in a little time to change people's at least first impressions. Yesterday morning they saw us for the first time. At least 70-80% just walked through because they were afraid.
Yeah.
The second day, today, it was the other way around. Only 20% walked through, and the rest was at least smiling and saying good morning or taking a flyer, and especially when they saw the planes coming out, there were tourists making pictures. And that changes the whole atmosphere, and it is as if you start winning the minds on the street before you enter the building. Then in the building it will come later, and that is with only few people and not much money, and with good energy you can do.
Yeah, good energy and good intentions. Okay, thank you all very much for participating. And
I just have a scoop.
Will you tell the scoop? Well, I know a bit of the scoop because I actually took a few pictures of you, Farid, a hero of Encod, one of our heroes, I must say, walking up to anybody, including Raymond Jans. Tell us first who he is. He is Belgian. Who is Raymond Jans?
Raymond Jans is the chairman of the INCB, the International Narcotic Control Board, which is the body composed with 13 people that are chosen by the member states. And it's those 13 people decide about which plants or which substance should be banned or not, and put under control. And it was quite interesting to meet him. He was quite open to the discussion.
Because he speaks French just like you.
He's Belgium, and he was joking and saying he's happy to speak in French with me, so we were quite fluently, but it was very frank, and I go straight, because on next week there will be a resolution about the rescheduling of the dronabinol, which is the name of the THC, the tetrahydrocannabinol, but when it's synthetic one. Okay. And so dronabinol,
THC, really.
Yeah.
Dronabinol, okay.
And so dronabinol will be sent from board 2 to board 3. That means that it will be spread in the use in terms of medicine, pills and different things, like we find quite easily. And so I just asked him why, since 2003, we know that the expert committee asked for this rescheduling, and why last year they didn't discuss it, and why if there will be a new change, and why this about dronabinol and not about the plant, the complete plant. And they told me about alkaloids, and this is the scoop. The head of INCB is able to talk about alkaloids in cannabis, but there is no alkaloids. There is just terpenoid or cannabinoid. And this, the amazing thing is the fact that we have some people that are in charge of these very important decisions, and finally they quite know nothing about.
This is quite amazing. Yeah.
So we still have to convince the people, then to make actions, and to
and educate them and inform them about what this plant is and what it can do, I think.
You should tell it to the Uruguayans that Raymond Jans thinks there are alkaloids in cannabis, because he always makes his opinion about what they do in Uruguay. Maybe Mujica should tell him, Jans, first read a little bit about cannabis.
We could maybe send him a little book or a brochure on cannabis facts.
He can get one from the Netherlands, I think. There's enough.
Okay, thank you all very much for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Those of you from Vienna, and thank you for viewing this. Spread this video, please.